Can you hear me? Sorry, I can't hear anything.
Here is now Liam.
Oh, yeah. Now I can hear you. Thank you.
William Collins.
Yep, present.
PRO. Okay. Paul Piano.
Present.
Karen Schmelkoff. Pretty good. Doug Miller.
Present.
Andy Noor. And Betsy's not sworn in yet, so.
Just for the public, just explain who Betsy is.
Betsy is another board member. She's an alternate, but we need to have her sworn in, so. She
So-
will not be participating.
Right, so for the purposes tonight, she will sit up here with us, but she can't participate in any conversations. And she can also not vote on any issues that we have. And hopefully in the future, she'll have an opportunity. And she is a senior at Red Bank Regional. Okay, so all of you have received the minutes in your email for April 17th. Are there, well, first of all, is there a motion to approve the minutes? Karen? Second?
I second.
Okay, are there any questions on the minutes? The chair seeing no questions, will ask for a vote of approval. Oh, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is public comments on agenda items. Chair recognizes. You come up and give your name and address.
Good evening, City Byrne, 71 Wallace Street. I just had a question about the Miller House. I was wondering, I know they're gonna do the hardy board, but I'm wondering if you're gonna do shingles on the front and clapboard on the side, or are you doing clapboard on the front too?
Clapboard all around.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions on the agenda? Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the Minor Works Review Committee report.
Yes, so the minor work committee met yesterday to discuss the sign for 95 Broad Street. It will be in the same size, same style and coloring as what was there, like the prep copy. But now it's a new business, same exact thing. Nothing has changed really, except for the store's name. So the minor work committee approved it and found it sufficient.
Anybody on the committee want to make a comment on that or? Okay, so old business. So the first item on old business, we have updated the historic inventory spreadsheet and that is available online. So I have a question for the commission going forward with this spreadsheet. We have recently been made aware that somebody who lives in the historic district were not aware that they were in the historic district and took steps to remove a slate roof, one of the few remaining in town. And, you know, the explanation was, gee, I didn't know. So I'm proposing that now that we have an updated survey of all of the places that have been listed by prior resolutions in 2004, 2006, and 2007, that the property owners on this list be notified that you are a part of, your property is part of the historic list. And further, that you have been either designated because of the architecture as contributing to the integrity of the district or non-contributing to the integrity of the district. And if they wish to make any comment on that designation or listing, because again, they may not be aware that I would invite them to come to the June meeting where we can, rather than piecemeal answering issues, have it all in one. It's my understanding that these designations are by resolution, and correct me if I'm wrong, not by ordinance. And the definition of resolution is more temporary than ordinance. So we could move forward with perhaps an ordinance at some point and an updated. Now we could say 2024, one of the things that this commission did was verify that these properties still exist. Because some of them are now vacant lots or have been destroyed since this list was introduced in 2009 was the last time it was approved, and to move forward. So if anyone, I don't believe it requires a motion. It's just a question of what is the feeling of the commission on this action. Does anybody have any feelings on it, Lou?
Yeah, I agree. It's a good idea and would recommend sending everyone that owns a property designated historic a letter informing them of that.
Okay.
And just because you're in the historic district doesn't mean you have an historic house also.
That's why, Marjorie went around and, did like a
Identified.
visual survey of whether or not it's non-contributing, contributing.
So it's really, it was just me, one person, looking at the ordinance and saying, you know, as a lay person walking, I mean, you know, just walking through, does this person add to the district or not add to the district? So for example, there was one, in addition to properties now being vacant since this list, there's one incident where the barn of the property is designated as historic, not the house, but you can see the barn from the street. And so as we've talked about in the past, what we're concerned about is, you know, what is the street view? Doesn't matter what anybody's done on the inside or if they added to the back part, but from the street view, somebody going through town, is this something that we really want to learn from, that we want to appreciate as historic? So if you could just draft a very simple letter, I think it just needs to be a couple of paragraphs notifying the property owners. And if they have any questions, if you'll agree, then we could address them as new business at the June meeting.
What's the opinion on the barn?
I put it down as non-contributing because you cannot even see it from the street.
Right.
And I was not going to enter the property owner's property. I mean, the house itself is beautiful. It's not designated, just the barn was designated. So I have no idea what the barn looks like. So
And you have to know that it was back there even.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. You know, so that's the point. And yeah, so I'm hoping then we could have a real list to work.
Well, I think one of the things as far as the long-term view of what we want to consider is if some property is in the designated zone, but is non-contributing, if they ever come before the commission to make any renovations, then our guidelines would suggest that they become contributing at that point if they want to renovate this facade of their property.
Well, the one thing that, you know, and again, I don't have an opinion on this yet, but in reading the ordinance, page 10 of 22 in the ordinance, the criteria for designation isn't solely the architecture. Sometimes it is, and I'm just quoting as number 2, association with events or, you know, identification of the work of the builder. You know, so, you know, it could be non-contributing, but still be, I believe, again, this is just my opinion, in my opinion, it should still be noted, but maybe have some other kind of designation why it's there. You know, looking at this house, it looks thoroughly modern to me, but at one point it had a notable Red Bank resident who lived there, or it was the last house designed by a particular builder, you know, so that's my view anyway, but again, we're just starting the designation, so I don't know where it's gonna lead us yet, so you could be non-contributing, but still important to our history, you know, and our history, I mean, Red Bank's history. Okay, so if there's no other questions or comments on number one, number two, moving forward to designate Irving Place as another historic district with 18 properties listed on that street. And I think we also received that letter in your emails.
Yeah.
All right, so did anybody have any comments on the letter? I thought the letter was fine. And they would be invited to come and address us if they choose to at the July meeting.
And the reason why it's not, just to correct from last month's meeting, we had said the June meeting, we would do the presentation. But after I, looked at the ordinance, it said 30 days. We had to give 30 days notice, and during the June meeting, I wouldn't have the 30 days to send it out in time. So that's why, I pushed it to the July meeting. Because it would give us significant, time to get out the noticing within the 30 days period.
But since we're not designating any, these properties have already been designated, we can just invite them to the June meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next item under old business is the 21 Broad Street facade application, and there was a possibility that Mr. Anderson would come back,
I'm here.
and he's here, okay.
Thank you. John Anderson again, on behalf of 21 Broad Street, RB LLC, and 21 Broad RB2 LLC. Last time it was just me. I've now got design professional Neil with you this evening. He did get an opportunity to make some plan revisions. You had 4 areas of concern. 3 of those have been addressed. One would be the removal of any plan notation about obscuring the word Doremus. That's been revised on the plans. It's not proposed to be obscured in any way.
Thank you, thank you.
It's presently, I think, a white terracotta, painted white terracotta facade, and the lettering is also white. I believe the proposal would be in whatever historic color we choose to paint it. Would have the backdrop as well as the wording in the same color, but not obscured or covered or
Right.
anything to that effect.
So it would be noticed from the street.
Yeah, I mean, it's not highlighted or emphasized or
Right.
demarcated in a different color, but I think it's just as it stands now, just to be spruced up, painted in
Mhm.
another historic color.
Okay, was there a thought to sandblasting it to bring back the original terracotta color at all? Was that ever considered? No,
No, I don't know that it was ever plain terracotta. All the photos I'd seen, it appeared to be a shade of white, but I'll let the architects.
yeah,
We also added a sort of a graphic or a detail on the plans showing a proposed entryway tile pattern, like a black and white style pattern, as the committee had requested we look into.
you got the pictures I sent to Shauna.
We did receive them, yep.
Okay.
So what we're showing, and then Mr. O'Neill can present it, would just be like a hypothetical tile pattern, 2-color with the street address set into it. I don't know that it's set in stone, but we propose something for you to look at.
Okay,
Mr. O'Neill will present that. I think I made a representation last time that we had no problem using the historic color palette. That's been noted on the plans, and again, Mr. will speak to it. There were 2 things that were kind of further discussion or further comment. think one of them was probably the simpler of the two, the sunshades or awnings, and my recollection was you wanted to see or hear what the proposed material is, perhaps a spec on it, what color would it be, how large, dimensions, and that's been noted on the plan, and Mr. O'Neill will speak to it. And the other discussion involved the proposed window on the third floor, which Mr. O'Neill will address with you. I'm gonna turn the floor over to Mr. O'Neill and can tell you a little bit about the plan and talk to you hopefully first about the awnings and then about the window.
Thank you.
Yeah, just you know the neat deal, Ed. You gotta draw it real close to you.
Oh, okay. There we go. I'm not sure how much John went over before. Do you need to know what the scope of the project is?
We were shown the blueprints
Uh-huh.
at the last meeting. He had a large display.
Right. So you know that it's primarily an interior renovation project. On the third floor, there is an addition that accommodates an elevator, which is an ADA requirement. It accommodates the raising of the back stair is only 2 stories tall, the third floor, so that the third floor could be have adequate emergency egress. And then there are 2 bathrooms that would be at the third floor where none exist. So that's the addition. So that's why we're before the zoning board, because we haven't, we exacerbated a change in the FAR that's already in operation. So.
But none of those would be visible from the Broad Street elevation, Mr. O'Neill?
No, and all the walls that face that are blank walls, they're fire walls, so. Nobody's going to see it unless they're up there. So that just gives you kind of an idea of what the rest of the project is. On the facade, as John mentioned, you'd be new painting and restoration of the terracotta, which to my knowledge has always been. We worked on the building 2 owners ago, which was about 2001, and it was white then. So
Did you, sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but if I am standing across the street looking up at the building, I could see the white paint peeling and like a terracotta color underneath it.
yes, but the original building, as far back as we can determine, was always coated.
So the terracotta was actually a paint, not the actual natural color of the brick or whatever was on it.
But in anything in our investigation, it was never anything but white. And when we undertook the project in 2001, the problem was that the terracotta was starting to fail and it was becoming porous. So there was a somewhat of an elastomeric paint on it to seal the terracotta, and it was painted over that. And that's when you see the peelings, because it hasn't really been touched in probably 8 years. And because facing south, so it gets a lot of harsh sun. So it's normal paint, fades, peels, not even hearing that kind of relenting sun. So.
The oldest photo that I had seen of it was the one that I presented to you last time. I believe it was like 1945 or 1946, and it appeared to be white at that time. I'll let Mr. O'Neill speak.
Yeah,
to the building.
Given the style of the building, which it was built in the 20s, the style of the building is called Art Moderne. And in Art Moderne architecture, it was really, they were trying to reduce things to black and white. So it was solid and void. That was the theory. And I mean, you see these all over the country and all over Europe. But again, the idea was to reduce the building down to its basic minimalist components. What's interesting about the building is the fact that they used the terracotta. Because if this was in Miami Beach in the 1920s, they would stuck up it. So that's really the one thing that's different about it. But again, to our investigation, which was pretty extensive back in 2001, it always appeared to have been painted.
Because, again, it's studying the building, especially with the design elements, like the diamonds and things like that. It reminded me of, I think it's the Western Union building in New York City, which was also done in the 1920s, which was the reddish color, and then the ornamentation is painted, so,
Historically.
Who knows?
Historically, the terracotta was really a more economical way of aiding detail, which was normally cut in stone cut. So what you were doing was you were casting terracotta like you would brick into a panel and then for all intents and purposes gluing it,
Right.
mortaring it to build, and that's what they did.
Mhm.
And that over time, when you build 100 years old, that starts to, that initial adherence starts to wear.
Mhm.
And that's where the water was getting in back in 2000.
Mhm.
And that was when it was an organic water for each.
Okay.
So we intend to recoat the building. We hadn't really thought about the indentation, the floor of the indentation, but your suggestion of using a tile inlay was attractive to us, and my client agreed that we would do a tile inlay. So we just showed an example. We haven't designed it literally, but that's an example of it. We are proposing to include what we think are sympathetic sunshades to the building, sympathetic from the standpoint of the Art Moderne style. So they are fairly low profile, black matte metal, and it's a black and white palette, which was very typical in the Art Moderne period. The purpose of them is it's a southwest facing building, and the large windows let in a tremendous amount of solar in. So to try to mitigate some of the overheating problems, which is really a goal of the master plan, is to make buildings that are sensitive to climate change. So those elements will create some level of shading on the building in the afternoon. And that would be on the second and third floor. And on the first floor, it would be a solid awning, really keep the rain off one's head as they try to get into the building, even though the entrances are recessed. We offset the sunshade, well, the awning really on the first floor, to highlight and center upon the new door location, which is slightly over from where it is. The entrance was never in the middle. It's always been all centered. And again, in the Art Moderne period, what they were trying to do was create motion, visual motion. And so when you look at a building, as a matter of fact, the building that was across Wallace Street from this, which was an old, I think it was either a Sunray Drugs or an Eisner's. It had a long one-story building with this massive concrete and steel sign. So that it's the counterpoint of horizontal motion and hierarchical emphasis at the entry. And now we're not doing that, but we felt that the offsetting of the awning, not running it all the way across the building, kind of lent itself to that motion, and it covers both doors because one door goes directly upstairs and one goes into the first floor. So one goes into the stairwell and the first floor. So that's why logical and also was movement. So that was the design theory.
Real quick, Mr. O'Neill, one of the concerns that the board had last time, I didn't hear you to say you disliked the awnings, you wanted more info, but one concern was where will they be set? Because you didn't want the awnings to be anchored into the terracotta to obscure like the ornate patterns. Could you address that really quick?
Well, again, the thought was that at the very top of the windows, there's a part that isn't terracotta. And that's where the mounting would occur. If we needed the additional support, it depends on the exact specification of that sunshade. And we haven't done that because we wanted to get some consultants in about the anchoring of it. If needed, we show 5 cables that would be then anchored into a spot between the tiles to put. And it's not just, remember, it's not just the weight coming down, it's also the weight coming up. But because they're movers, they don't really move because if you're standing real close to the building and you look straight up, you're going to see the sky because they're going to be vertical movers. And again, the depth of it will be about 3 feet. And that will be enough since the sun comes in at about a 72 degree angle in the summer. That will be enough to cover or provide shade for the window and a large part of the
as far as the mass of the shade itself, the thickness or the height of that,
It's about 4 inches.
and that's proposed to be set at the very tippy top of the windows rather than on the terracotta.
Yes, because I brought it up to the client certainly knows that, you know, messing with the terracotta, you want to really interfere with that as little as possible. Even purely from a structural and practical, let alone the aesthetic.
How about the approximate depth of the?
About 3 feet. About 3 feet. So, which again, should be more than enough to deal with.
Painted black mat.
Yeah, again, because as with the inlay in the entryway, and again, in the Art Moderne style, they tend to be black and white. Literally,
I'm sorry, so the thickness of the awning, it's gonna be 3 inches, is that
it's
right?
about 4 inches.
4 inches,
About
okay.
4 inches.
4 inches thick, about 3 feet in depth, painted black matte metal, louvered on the second and third floor, but not the first. Offset on the first, but not the second, third. And proposed to be aligned with the top of each of them.
Right, and it'll probably be made out of
Out of what?
aluminum, because it won't rust.
Can I ask a quick question? Can you just address, are you concerned at all with any runoff or snow accumulation, let's say, on the third floor that would fall to the sidewalk?
It'll go right through.
It'll what?
Go right through.
It'll go right through? Just a little bit.
The only part on the bottom, which would that, you know, keep the rain off your head, that'll have its own drainage system.
But snow won't accumulate on the awnings on the third floor or the second floor?
The spacing between the things is too great for it to
Okay.
accumulate. It's going through.
And what's the material? I'm sorry, I must have missed
It's
that.
going to be painted aluminum,
No, the material of the awning on the first floor.
same thing.
So that's gonna be a metal awning, but it's just enclosed or solid. It's gonna be a solid metal awning.
Underneath, it wouldn't let anything through.
Okay,
So again, if you were going to the front door, it was raining.
so it's not gonna be like a fabric type of awning, it's just, okay.
And these are very common. This is not a very uncommon. You see them. And I guess then the last issue are the windows. So the second floor windows that exist are butt seam glazing. So we are proposing to do the third floor, which had been altered for apartments that are no longer there. And to repeat the windows on the second onto the third, matching the ones on the second, which is similar to what we proposed back in 2001 and was accepted, and that my peer, Steve Rossini, proposed and was accepted. It just neither one was ever built. But the third floor windows were always meant over the last 20-something years to match the second. So we are continuing that idea. My client has been more than willing to do that work, which technically doesn't have to do. Which I think will unify the building into what it originally was, which was 2 bars of windows, horizontal oriented windows. And again, it's all about motion. In the Art Moderne style, it's all about speed and motion. So having a window that can be seen as contiguous is very important in style. Now, the original building had almost a cage of muntins and mullions. And the fact of the matter is, in the 1920s, they didn't have the technical ability to make glass like they do now. The glass they make now, which is called float glass, was really only perfected in 1960. Prior to that, all those muntins are holding individual pieces of glass, which were highly efficient, both from the standpoint of leaking and from an energy efficiency standpoint. A lot of them also were operable because there was no air conditioning. And so, considering the change in technologies in buildings, that's why the butt seam glass was used on the second floor. It has a spectacular effect inside. The visual effect of going into that space and seeing that window is jaw dropping. And when you look at It's at the moment it's Broadmoor. And you can kind of see in, and then when you're down the back on the bottom, and the lights are on, like now, and you can see through, it's really quite a unique experience, which was very much in the minds of Art Moderne.
So all of that sounds great. Just like another thought, and you're the architect, so you probably don't have any view on this, but it would be wonderful if in some way it could be noted somewhere in the building, the style of building that it was, and any history of the building to be incorporated so that someone entering the building or walking by the building could appreciate a little bit about its history. So again, we can't do anything about that, but you know, it's just like people walk by and they notice the building, but they really don't understand the building.
I could speak to my client about whether we could do something, certainly on the inside, it would be easy. Weatherproof.
Yeah, right. I mean,
Certainly
I'm
on
just
the
saying, so that
inside.
people could learn about the history of the building. That's all. That's all.
Certainly on
I
the
mean,
inside, absolutely.
I mean-
I think it would be a nice feature to be able to have that there. and say-
Especially if you're gonna give a prohibition vibe at some point, and, you know, since it's a building from the 1920s, when, you know, that kind of thing. I mean, there were Rumson homes that were,
Okay,
you know, involved in prohibition and, you
but
know,
also remember it was part of the Jazz Age,
yeah,
and
true.
our town, I live here too, so I say our town has really been in many respects defined by the Jazz Age.
Right.
Casey and people like that, I mean, and the Art Moderne style was a response to jazz music.
Right, right. So bring it all together. Yeah, great.
I have one question. I appreciate maintaining the style, but last time somebody, and I don't know who it was, mentioned that they didn't like the wall windows, that they wanted something,
Sections,
Yeah.
section.
yeah.
Oh, I think that was Paul was talking about the framing of the window.
The
Yeah,
original photograph that was provided by Mr. Anderson shows some detail within the window that you had just described at the time required individual panes of glass
Yes.
at the time. But I imagine at this point, there is a product of some sort that would give that appearance. I'm not necessarily married to that. If you're telling me it's not congruent with the history of the building,
In my opinion, it's not.
but it was there at
If back in the 20s, if you look at design drawings from architects in the 20s who were in this style, they never showed any muntins and mullions at all. It was like this idea of having a pure void of glass. It's just that they couldn't physically do it. But as soon as they were able to in the 50s and 60s, right, really in the early 60s, they did it. And all of a sudden, their mullions and muntins were gone. And so many buildings, because the muntins and mullions were so inefficient from a weather standpoint and from heating and cooling, they replaced them with butt-seam lamps. They just wholesale replaced them because it just didn't make any sense. So when you go anywhere you go with Art Moderne buildings, you see it's a clear sheet of glass. It's a pure. I got drilled into this when I was in architectural school, given the time I was there, it was the purity of the wood.
I didn't have that, the benefit of that knowledge or design expertise last time. My thought was the bars of the cage like
Different skill set,
light.
different skill set.
You see, that's a much better thing to do.
Absolutely.
Well,
Thing that occurs to me as a non-design professional, looking at just Mr. O'Neill's photos, it also is really cool in that it reflects back a lot of the buildings across the street. So when you're looking at that plain glass, you're seeing all the beautiful buildings across the street reflected back at you. It's kind of always dawned on me, and I like that.
Yeah.
I'm not the professional.
Yeah, and then just remember at night, it's the exact opposite. The inside just pops out because that's what light does. So, so now all of a sudden, instead of you see the reflection, the building explodes on. That was the whole idea back in.
kind of like an Edward Hopper painting.
Yes. Yes, the Nighthawks painting, the
Yes.
perfect example.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you for your time.
Thank you for listening.
I'm looking forward to dining there. I don't,
Do you want to recommend it? You voted on the last one.
yeah, we did vote.
Oh, not on this one.
Oh,
I had two last time, you voted on 17.
Oh, sorry.
Stuck to the plan.
all right, so, anyone like, to make a motion to recommend? Yes,
Yeah, I'd move to recommend
okay,
as drafted.
I'll second it.
I
And,
just want to clarify, so we're accepting all the changes that they made and the revisions,
Mhm,
no
Correct.
added recommendations.
no added recommendations.
Wanted the interior. sort
Oh,
of
the-
interior
the-
placard.
I just, if they, I mean, I would like,
Fine.
I would like everybody on Broad Street to do something similar if it was within my power.
I'll volunteer to get, as long as my client is okay with it, I'll volunteer to get put together
Yeah,
for my position as a professor in the school.
yeah, that would
It's actually a
be,
neat idea. Maybe I'll take to it kind of up.
that would be lovely, because a lot of the cornerstones are gone. And, you know, even if, I mean, again, Doremus, no one's ever gonna know that name, but the point is that they did take steps, different kind of steps architecturally than the other buildings on Broad Street. It's different than some of the other buildings on Broad Street, so let's put a style to it. Let's educate people a little bit about, you know, its relation to the Jazz Age, and, you know, I mean, be great.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay,
all
all right.
right.
So, Louis Almarini,
Yes.
Marjorie Cavalier,
Yes,
Liam Collins,
Yes.
Paul Cagno,
Yes.
Karen Smelkoff, Doug Miller.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very much.
thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right. Okay, so we're gonna move on to new business. And so, Shauna, if you could address maybe number one
Okay.
under new business.
So 26 Wallace and 68 Wallace previously appeared before the, prior, historic commission. Last year was one and the year before was the other. They didn't start their work at the time after they got their HPC approval. However, they're beginning their work now and they went to, the building department for their permit. So they were previously approved by the commission. So we just wanted to put that on the record that they were previously approved. So others may start seeing, you know, people around in the community may start seeing work being done, but they were approved by the commission. So it's just now that they're beginning to start the work on their properties. Okay.
Okay, so I'll address numbers 2 and 3. 2 is certified local government application. So a couple of weeks ago, I did a Zoom call with 2 people involved in the Westfield Historic Preservation Commission. One of whom is involved at the state level as well. And they shared with me that in the state, there's roughly about 120 historic preservation commissions that are certified by the state, that they meet certain requirements, as opposed to just a group of people getting together and say, yeah, let's preserve history. So Shauna has downloaded the application and we will make application to the state. So I just wanted to make you aware, you know, there's no cost to us. The benefit to us is that it does open up the possibility of additional grants if we're designated as a CLG, Certified Local Government. So I think that's kind of good news, and we just learned by talking to people and meeting. So did you want to?
Also, a part of being a CLG is that this commission will also review like national registry. They'll send us applications that for national registry designation, and we could write back to them to say whether or not we agree with the property whatever property throughout the United States, should be designated as a national, site, National Historic Landmark Site. So we will be more, it's not just Red Bank, but you know, it's all over.
So it'll be a learning process for us as well, to help us understand a little bit more about our mission. So the final item under new business is, the New Jersey Historic Preservation Conference is taking place in Jersey City on June 5th and 6th. I have asked Shauna to enroll me for the conference on the 6th. So, in July, well, maybe even, yeah, perhaps in June, I can share with you the workshops that I've attended on the 6th. And if there's anything I can bring back to the commission.
And if anyone's still interested in attending, you could just send me an email and I'll send out for the registration. It's still open, so if you're interested in attending, just let me know so I can register you.
I may attend, but not officially, just because I have friends presenting, so I'll probably,
Oh, you're a presenter
No,
no.
a friend of hers.
on the 6th or on the 5th? Oh, okay. All right, so the next part of the agenda is public comments on 9 non-agenda items. Anybody in the public? All right, the chair seeing nobody in the public, wanting to make a comment, so, if would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Right.
Aye.
The time is 7:45. Thank you for your attention. All right. All right,
Bye, Williams.
Excellent.
Thanks, everybody.
all right.